Hey, it's Jason from Pro Guitar Studio. Today we're going to talk about the 5 most common mistakes that beginner guitarists make while they're learning their instrument. Now, this can be applicable to you even if you've been playing for a while, but this is especially important if you're just starting on the instrument. So I'm going to try to save you time and hassle to give you the idea of what I've discovered over the last 15 years of teaching. Now, I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet, and we'll just dive right into the first thing. So the first thing I notice is inconsistent practice. What I mean by that is not necessarily how much you practice per week, but how often you practice. So some students, for example, will try to cram in 1 hour once per week as their practice time. But trust me when I say that 15 minutes once per day is in a far out way doing 2 hours per week, as an example, right? So a lot of people think if they don't have, let's say, 30 minutes, 45 minutes to sit down, it's not worthwhile picking the guitar up. But I can actually tell you that even having 5 minutes, if you have 5 minutes to spare, grab that guitar, practice it. Make sure you hold the guitar in your hands each and every day, because at first we're building muscle memory, right? We're building the actual movements that our fingers need to improve on the instrument. And so doing it just one time per week, there's so much time in between practice sessions that you really can't get that muscle memory. So even like I said, 10 minutes per day can far outweigh doing even 2 hours a week, 3 hours a week in one day. So if you try to cram it all into one day, you're definitely going to find you have a hard time getting back into it. So you'll spend most of the time just trying to get those motions back that you had the previous time. Whereas if you do it every day, it comes much more easily and readily for your hands. Okay, so that's the biggest thing, inconsistent practice. So make sure you practice consistently. Try to grab it, like I said, even 5-10 minutes. It's worth it, trust me. Don't think that 5 minutes is not worth it in terms of picking the guitar up and trying to play through something, work through something. Just get that guitar in your hand every single day, or as close as possible, let's say 5 days a week, and trust me, you'll thank me for that. Now, the second thing I notice is that many guitar players tend to ignore the rhythm side of things. So they'll ignore the strumming hand or the picking hand while they work on all the things that we can work on with our fretting hand. So obviously with the fretboard, we have a lot of things going on. So there's a lot of notes, a lot of different options. So a lot of exercises you'll look at out there will be more heavily focused on what the fretting hand is doing. But in reality, the rhythm is what sets everything in motion, right? So if you end up playing, let's say, all the perfect notes and you're off with your rhythm, that's going to be more noticeable than actually having a couple notes wrong on the fretting hand, but perfect rhythm. So I would say rhythm is more important than the actual notes you're playing, although they're important too. But if you had to pick one or the other, the rhythm is what sets everything in motion, right? So if you're playing in a band, right away, someone's going to notice if you're playing off time. It's going to be quite obvious. It'll sound sloppy. Just keep that in mind. Playing in time is the most important thing. So my suggestion is to play as often as possible with backing tracks, recordings, a metronome. And I notice this with students. The students who play along with recordings even, or jam with other people, they get better much, much faster, and they sound much tighter than someone who just plays at home without any sense of external timing. So when you're playing by yourself, it's easy to think that you're in time when in fact you're completely off time because you have nothing to gauge it by. So putting a recording on, putting a metronome on, playing along with that metronome is really going to help you. So keep that in mind. Play along with some external source of timing, at least for part of your practice. Not the whole time, but at least for part of it so you get used to playing in time. Now, the third thing that I notice is that people tend to over-focus on one skill. So let's say you're working on your favorite guitar riff. They'll tend to focus on only that guitar riff until they try to get it perfect, right? So this might take them a week, 2 weeks. But the problem with this method is that when you're practicing that for, let's say, 2 weeks, all those other skills, you're missing out on the development of those other skills. So if someone focuses solely on playing individual notes, they're lacking in their chord changes, for example, or their rhythm. So if we try to work on things together, let's say in a span of a week, let's say you have 4 things that you want to get accomplished from different areas, that's going to be much more beneficial to your playing than trying to just get one thing perfect. Another mistake within that same realm is someone trying to get a single song perfect before moving on. And that can cause a whole variety of problems, especially at the beginning. So when you're first starting on the guitar, it's not going to sound perfect. You're not going to sound like the recording. So if you go in with that mindset, it's going to be much easier to leave a song after you get it, let's say 50% of the way there, and go on to something to help build your skills in other areas. Because even when I first started, I would have, let's say, played Stairway to Heaven from Led Zeppelin, right? Within the first year of playing. I know for sure it did not sound like the song. I was happy enough with it, and I revisited it years later and got it down. But if you're first just starting on the guitar, most of those things are not going to sound perfect. They won't sound like the recordings because you don't have enough experience behind you. So keep that in mind. Get it close there. Get it to the point where you're happy with it. But when you start to get bored, go to something else. And when you pick up a guitar, try to have a variety of things to practice in one session. So even if you have 10, 15 minutes, try to cycle through 2 or 3 things just to keep your fingers moving and get a range of things going on. So you have chords, you have single notes. If we're doing, let's say, theory like scales, picking skills, strumming, individual picking patterns. All those things can come handy when you're practicing, because when it comes time to actually play a song that includes all those skills, we would have developed all those skills in tandem, as opposed to trying to do everything from scratch when you encounter a song that has all these different skills in it. So try to work on a big variety of things as you're practicing. Obviously, you don't want to do too much, so there's a fine line between having too many things to work on and not enough. But at the beginning, definitely at the beginning, you want to try to work on as much material as possible, just to give your fingers a chance to actually learn the motions that are needed, okay? All right, now for number 4. And this mistake right here is looking for shortcuts. Now, there are ways to learn things faster, but when it comes to shortcuts, you'll see often people touting on the internet, learn guitar in 7 days, or any kind of flashy title to help lure you in. And the problem with that is that there are really no shortcuts. You really have to put the work in. So if you're just starting on the guitar, there are no shortcuts in terms of building those skills up. You have to put the time in, you have to practice. There are ways to make sure you work on things efficiently. Okay, so that's a difference in terms of how we look at that. So when I say work on things efficiently, making sure you're working on things in the right way, doing things correctly from the start, those are all good things to look at. But shortcuts don't typically tend to work out that way. So I would avoid looking for shortcuts and try to just focus on putting the time in on the things that you need to work on. So my main point here is there's no shortcut to getting clean chord changes, for finger strength, for building speed. All those things you actually have to work on with the guitar, okay? So there's no way. I've had people ask this before, like, how do I play faster? Now, there are ways we can work on building speed for your picking hand, but really, in that sense, it's still a long-term thing to work on. It's not something we're going to get in 1 week. We're not going to build your picking control up with all those fine muscles in your hand within a week. It needs to be done over a longer period of time. So as long as you're working on the right things, it will come. So just keep that in mind. There are no shortcuts to building fundamentals. Now, my 5th example here, this is really important, and it is not enjoying the process. So in order to practice as much as you need to practice, you really need to enjoy the practicing. So what I mean about that is that you don't want to make it feel like homework. When it starts to feel like homework, it's not fun. You need to enjoy the process. So all the small little wins, you need to celebrate those. You need to be able to look at yourself over a longer period of time and start to notice those small improvements that you do get, okay? So those are good things. So keeping maybe a short video diary of your practice progress, that can really help. That definitely helps in the long run. If you keep track of your practice and look back on it 2 months from now, you're going to be impressed. But day to day, it might not feel like much. Now, also, so you know, plateaus are normal. So when you start feeling, let's say, a little less enthusiastic about practicing, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong necessarily, but it means that you might need to find something to spark interest again, right? So that might mean finding a new song, finding a different way to practice. Getting a new guitar can be a one way, right? And I'm not encouraging you to go buy a guitar just for that. But yeah, I've had times where a certain style of guitar is a difference between me not being happy practicing and me enjoying the process. So that can definitely help out. Frustration is part of learning. So just as long as you become one with that, then you'll be happy. And as long as you understand in advance that you will go through stages with your learning. So when you learn a song, it's going to go from not knowing the song where you feel frustrated to starting to learn it where it feels a bit better and to eventually where you know it. And every time you do a new song or a new piece, it's going to feel like that. So if you know that in advance and you can tell yourself what to expect, that makes it a lot easier. So, set out the expectations for yourself. Understand that it's not an easy process, but it's something you will get a lot of enjoyment out over the years. And I say years because, learning the guitar is a long process. It's not something we do in like 2 or 3 months. It's definitely longer term. So learn to love the process. That's my main message there. Now, the final bonus thing that I want to say here is a lot of times people will try to avoid playing with other people, but I think that's the biggest thing you can do to improve your playing. So if you're able to get out there, play with other people, join a group class, join a group of people that are actually jamming, that can be the difference between you not loving the process and you loving the process. So I find it's not necessarily a mistake, but it's a mindset thing where people will not be interested in playing with others at first. But I say get out there as soon as you can, try to jam, play with others, learn from other people. And the more you do that, the more comfortable you're going to be on the instrument, the faster you'll learn, and the more you're going to get out of it. So music is meant to be played with other people, to be enjoyed by other people, for other people, with other people. So just include that as part of your playing if you can, and I guarantee you're going to start enjoying it even more. Now, most problems you're going to face are going to come from a lack of structure, so keep that in mind. Progress accelerates with direction, okay? So as long as you know which way you're going in, set goals for yourself, that's going to help you immensely. Make sure that you work on a variety of things. Don't just try to work on one thing at a time, and try to master it before moving on, it's not going to help you in the long run. Work on a variety of different skills as you move along. Focus on your rhythm, so really get comfortable strumming, playing in time, playing with a metronome. That's really important. And make sure for yourself you have a clear plan of what you want to accomplish. So what are your goals here? What do you want to achieve out of learning the guitar? Is it something personally for your own enjoyment? Do you want to play with others? Do you want to make your own music? So make sure you set those things out for yourself so you know what you're working towards. And if any one of these things that I mentioned today resonated with you, I'd start there. Just do one thing at a time. So work on one of these mistakes, and hopefully you've learned from this and sort of pick up on this. Is years of experience I'm trying to share with you of things I've noticed and observations I've made from other people. So if you are able to learn from this and actually help yourself, it's going to save you a lot of frustration. Enjoy this. Any comments, questions, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think, and I will see you soon.